Welcome on in, you rascals. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you guys can subscribe, hit that like button, comment. Welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you for checking us out here. Your Miami Heat, still in the midst of a long break, but there was some newsworthy stuff out of today's practice as Terry Rozier did not practice. Neither did Jaime Jaquez Jr., nor Josh Richardson. But the big story is, I think, with Terry, because we have this whole foot issue thing, and he said to reporters today that it is part of the reason he didn't play Monday is because they knew the break was coming. So, and Spo alluded to that, like they were going to try and use this time, this elongated break, to give him a chance to just reset, feel better, and hopefully, as he says, on Sunday be ready for the Dallas Mavericks. We did get news on the other injury front from the other side that Luka Doncic is going to miss some time. He's apparently going to be reevaluated in a week, which would bring us to Thanksgiving. So it looks like Luka will not be part of the Mavs team that is going to be taking on the Miami Heat that Sunday. So the Heat will definitely have to try and take advantage of not having an MVP candidate in the building, not rest on their laurels, and obviously they will be very fresh coming into that game as well. Will Terry Rozier, he seemed to imply to reporters today that he wants to give it a go. I do have to give Terry credit for this. You know, he was asked about it today about, has that this issue that he's had has been lingering all season, but he would not let it be a reason as to why he has struggled. Because he says, basically, when he gets out on the court, his quote was that he can ignore anything and that it hasn't been a factor, which is an admirable thing. The man is going out there and he's giving you no excuses. I know, and I think the fan base is giving him a pretty hard time right now, and he struggled. Don't get me wrong. Like, he has, but he obviously is gunning through something, and we know that Terry can be, streaky and up and down. We've seen the best of Terry Rozier. Unfortunately, after the best of Terry Rozier last year, it did coincide with this bad neck injury that flared up, and that's kind of one of the things that gives you a worry with him, because last year, you remember the neck thing being like, shouldn't be too big a deal. But if this is something that's been bothering him, from the start of the season, do the Heat almost put themselves in a position where they should make sure he is 100%, right? And they have a little bit of a luxury here, because it does seem like they've stumbled upon somewhat of a starting lineup that can work without him. And, if there is somebody they could, I don't know, how long they could last without Jimmy Butler and his ability to get to the free throw line and how good a record that they can have. I don't know how they could survive without Bam Adebayo, and the way Tyler Herro is playing, I don't know how long they could manage without Tyler Herro. But if there's a guy in that starting group right now that you could be like, all right, they could weather the storm a little bit, it probably would be Terry, and you would want Terry to come back and be fully healthy. I know everybody gets kind of crazy with the whole load management thing, but if Terry Rozier, a guy who plays with burst, with speed, makes people miss, if he doesn't have his foot, his agility, if he doesn't have all of his comfort there and all of his and doesn't have all of his ability, I don't know what the benefit of having him out there is, especially in the games that are in the teens right now. You know what I mean? I do think the Heat still have to be smart about it. And even acknowledged today, he's like, look, he knows he can play better, and that he believes that he will play better. This is a guy that once he gets right, he feels like he's going to have a positive impact on the team. I agree with him.
I can do a lot of things better, which I know is going to happen. You just got to appreciate the struggle and everything that comes with it. But I know once this thing turns, it's going to turn, and it's going to be, it's going to be super beneficial for me and for the guys. So, just got to appreciate the struggle, everything that's that I'm going through right now.
So I think he's had a pretty positive outlook on all this stuff, and you're hopeful that he can bounce back. The other piece of news that came out of Heat camp today was Erik Spoelstra. And Erik Spoelstra was asked about kind of the elephant in the room this week, which, of course, was after the Miami Heat had a great performance in beating the Philadelphia 76ers and really sending them into even more of a tailspin. Man, if I could just take a pause here, because I want to get to this Kel'el Ware thing in a second. Wow, the Sixers. I mean, it's a funny thing with the Sixers, because I've never really looked upon the Sixers as a Heat rival. But I do not care for that organization simply because, like even this year, like Stan Van Gundy came out and he was like, the Heat aren't in the same ballpark as somebody like the Sixers or the Bucks. And I was like, we're still doing this with the Sixers. I understand they have Joel Embiid. I understand Joel Embiid is an all-world talent and the guy is incredible. And even yesterday, like put up a good game and he's laboring through some things and I'm sure Joel Embiid will get right. But the guy, his durability only lasts until the April showers set away, and then something's going to flare up eventually. And the guy's never had a deep playoff run. Never. So I don't understand why there's great benefit of the doubt. But then you add on top of it that he's pissed about the leaking of the story, which I don't know who the hell leaked it to Shams that quick. I don't know if it's, I don't know if it was Lowry. I don't know if it was somebody on the team, Caleb Martin, having those old reminiscing Heat days. It was interesting that like they had the whole rundown of, it was called by Kyle and, Paul George doesn't feel like it's his place, but Tyrese Maxey called him out and Tyrese Maxey's saying that they laid down. But Joel Embiid's like comment that whoever leaked it is a real piece of bleep is fine. I can understand that anger because it's embarrassing to Joel Embiid, right? That he's being called out for not being professional. And he does have to be better about that. But the fact that it gets leaked like that, dude, I cannot ever imagine that happening with the Miami Heat. I really can't. I'm trying to think about how many examples you have of actual juice like that. Like there's inklings, there's rumblings. You can hear some things. The organization wasn't, like maybe like, the organization wasn't thrilled about Jimmy being emo Jimmy. The organization bristled at this, that, Hassan Whiteside, we knew that, but like a lot of that stuff was public. You knew like, Spoels' frustration with Hassan Whiteside. Man, I think like is like the Dion Waiters gummy report is like the most dirt detailed report that's ever hit a Heat. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously the D Wade thing back and forth publicly got nasty, but that was more of a player versus front office. I'm trying to think of like a time that the Heat really had a lot of maybe the crying and the, but that was Spo leaking that. Spo was the one who had loose lips and was like, yeah, guys are crying in the locker room, and then everybody grabbed onto that. I'm trying to think, man. Maybe you guys can hit me with one in the comments that'll refresh my memory of like a genuine drama leak like this that the Sixers seem to have all the time. All the time, dude. And some organizations just like if you look at football, like the Jets, it feels like the Jets, you get all of it. All of it, it'll come out eventually. So I don't know. But that was a crazy thing. And then, oh man, I'm going down the beaten path here of these rat bastard Sixers. But Paul George, then he has to put out podcast P, and the thumbnail to get clicks is inside the player meeting right after Joel is talking about. Oh, and I listened to the episode, and so like his defense is, well, my defense is I discussed it and I was upset that stuff got leaked. But dude, you're still like, you're doing the clickbait thing to get people in a 2-12 team. Like it's one thing for like Draymond to do it, and you're a multiple time champion and all that, but you're just at this organization in Philly. Whew. Caleb Martin has to be shaking his head right now, dude. That's crazy. And it was funny, too, because then there was this other report that came out, report strong, but there was some fodder that was put out there by, believe it was Vince Goodwill from Yahoo Sports, that was saying, like, Joel Embiid, one of the reasons Joel Embiid's been such a mope this year is because he wanted the Sixers to go get Jimmy Butler. And there was a lot of fodder. I think even Ethan reported, like he thought that the implication was that a lot of the Jimmy fodder this summer was dusted up by a Heat rival, that it was dusted up, and if it was going to be dusted up by anybody, it's Daryl Morey. And Daryl Morey does have a lot of sycophants in the media. Not that Ethan's one of them. I'm not putting you, Ethan. I'm thinking of more people like The Ringer and stuff like that. But he's got a lot of people, you know, who like, they love Daryl Morey. They think he's the best because he talks to him all the time. And it's interesting that Vince has this report where he's like, yeah, he's upset because he told the 76ers to go get my guy Jimmy Butler, and he doesn't think that he's been happy because they ended up with Paul George, who then comes out and is like podcasting about the meeting that Joel Embiid had for clicks. This is not going to work out. I mean, dude, this is heading towards a Molotov cocktail of suck. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the fallout is of this because I don't think they trade Joel Embiid. But this is headed towards a nasty place, dude. A nasty place. But look, dude, it's hard not to notice. We even said this with the comments. You knew on the backdrop of those comments of the meeting, and then Jimmy Butler, the comments that, oh, Jimmy Butler is top 5, one of the best. He's the best. I was like, that's first of all a very odd quote that he gave. But also now that you have the backdrop of, oh, and he was also called out by everybody in the locker room. And Jimmy's the only guy, I feel like, of his ilk that's like always had Joel's back publicly. And maybe that's because Jimmy's misunderstood, Joel's misunderstood. Maybe it's because they're both a little bit of a, you know, I don't know. Like they both rub people the wrong way sometimes, or they're just they just march to their own beat. I don't know. Maybe he likes the way Jimmy held him accountable because Jimmy's a grown man and he's getting called out by Tyrese Maxey, who is very talented but still very young. Hard to say. But the Heat with their own very, very tepid drama that's going on, and that is the fans wanting Kel'el Ware to play. And this was, this obviously got a bigger spotlight this week, because you had the great game from Dalton Connect. You've had great runs from him and Jared McCain, who were the last two picks, that were taken after Kelel, you know? And I think the things that have Heat fans frustrated with this is not necessarily that the Heat picked a bust. It really, from my standpoint, it doesn't have anything to do with not taking Connect or not taking Jared McCain, right? You knew going into this draft the Heat were going to be kind of in this tweener spot. Then there were a lot of names from like Ron Holland to Zach Edey. You really had to span your ace because you don't know what anybody's going to like. You're kind of at the mercy, right? And then you got to make this pick. And I think you think of Kelel and the fact that he is 7'1" and he can, shoot it, and he has this blocking ability, and he don't really have anybody like him on the roster. They really don't, even with Bam aside, to be like a true 7-footer. They don't have that. And guys like Connect, they have Duncan Robinson. A guy like Jared McCain. They have Tyler Hero. And sometimes maybe you're just better off taking and they have Jaime Jaquez as well, to put in that note. Like they basically did the Dalton Connect thing last year with taking Jaime Jaquez Jr. So they decided to go a little bit more projection here. And I'm not blaming the Heat for the pick, okay? I'm definitely not calling that fight 13, 14, 15 games into people's careers. That would be wildly stupid, okay? So I just want to be clear about that. I am still a fan of Kel'el Ware. I'm very intrigued by the pick. I think my frustration really comes from that I'm too much of a Kel'el Ware fan, and I want to see the kid play. But that Erik Spoelstra marches to his own beat. He's not going to be pressured by anything. And he had some interesting comments today when asked about the Kel'el Ware thing. And his challenge to Kelel was interesting because he basically told him to quiet the noise. So this was about a minute. And Spoels, always thoughtful when it really when he wants to really get insightful on what he wants from his young guys. And here's his answer on where things are with Kelel Ware, his challenge to Kelel Ware, and where things stand with the warehouse. And this was Spo.
He's really committed to the whole process. And part of that process is just quiet all the noise. Everybody has all these expectations, and rightly so. And if he's not playing a certain amount of minutes, or if he doesn't get in a game, that doesn't mean that things are going poorly. Quite the contrary. He's doing a lot of really good things. Really good practice today. And what I just said about Alec, that's a lesson, for him that I think he actually is taking to heart. Control what you can control. Stack good days. You keep on doing those good days. It leaves an impression on the head coach and the rest of the coaching staff, your teammates, and he's getting better. He still has to learn the league, learn how things go. But he's making a lot of forward steps behind the scenes, and that's what you want to see with young players.
So suppose a lot of that stuff, I mean, there's a lot of positive stuff from him and talking about this. And look, they slow-rolled Nikola Jovic too. They basically gave Nico a redshirt year. And yeah, he had a back injury in there, but he also basically spent the year beefing up, getting bigger. And then, you thought that next year he was going to play a little bit more. He thought he was going to play a little bit more, and it really didn't come until the middle of the year. Injuries played a role in that too. And I still think he's, trying to find his footing, but you can very clearly see a guy who's more physically confident in his gifts. And, I think Spo also did him a service putting him as a bench player, because it allows him to be him more often than if he were to just be in the starting unit and be in the Haywood spot or the Kevin Love spot. And that's also part of it is, Kelel got a little bit of a taste, and then Kevin Love came back, and you're not going to not play Kevin Love. And Nico's now on the bench, and like you said, Nico's not playing. But, like I said, Kelel does provide something different than both of those guys. And I think especially I'm intrigued about, him as a rim-protecting presence and what he can deter people with. And that's the real challenge of, can he get all those assignments down? Can Spo trust him? And I guess the answer to that for him is no. But I do think for this, I think Kelel's in a good place because, look, first of all, he's in the same organization as Bam Adebayo. Bam has not been shy about talking about the frustrations of his rookie year and not playing as much as he thought he should have. And, he said, he's going to teach, one of the words that he used even before the season started was he's got to know patience. He's got to know patience. And we got to know patience. I'm a greedy pig. I've told you. I understand. I'm not helping the narrative on this either. But I want what I want. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to sit here and when there are games the Heat are struggling and I'm trying to figure things out about the future of the team, you're certainly intrigued by seeing what the kid can bring to the table. He had a fantastic summer. And you just kind of want to see how it all plays out. I think we're also curious, hey, is there ever going to be a time where him and Bam can share the court together? Bam's also kind of gone through his own little offensive funks that seems like they're starting to melt away a little bit. So maybe that'll put, Spo in a place where he's more confident about throwing another big out there. But all this stuff is still very, very early. And hopefully, that this kid's time will come at some point, and maybe we'll be providing some big minutes to help the Miami Heat win. But I think it did have. I'm appreciative that got asked this week at practice, because I do think that had to be addressed by Spo, because it is going to be a story. It is a first round pick, and when your contemporaries are flourishing around you, and you're kind of just sitting here and the coach isn't ready to go full go on you yet. It's important to know that the coach is like, hey, don't listen to the narratives. Don't listen to the stuff around you. Don't listen to the bozos like Tobin, who lash out at me at Twitter. Go about your work, and your time will come. So very, very interesting stuff from the Heat practice today.